Welcome to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, one of the world's top-rated accredited Shopify experts. Our founder, Keith Matthews, interviews Shopify folk to share as many Shopify tips and tricks as possible. This podcast is kindly supported by our two favorite Shopify tools we install in every store, Rewind.io and Klaviyo. Rewind is the leading backup solution for Shopify stores. Let's just say it's the cheapest insurance policy you'll ever get for your Shopify store, protecting all of your valuable data. And Klaviyo is our preferred automated email solution and is trusted by over 65,000 brands worldwide. Keep listening. We have some special offers for our podcast fans. Now over to your host, Keith Matthews.
Hi folks, welcome back. My guest today is Josh Frank from TestTriggers.com. Based in Michigan in the United States, Josh has made a living from helping Shopify store owners optimize the most important Shopify page, the product page. It sounds simple, it's really, really important, and it requires experience and skill. So let's hear how we can improve and maximize conversions on your Shopify product page. Josh, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Josh, I have been following you in the socials, and we're also part of Kurt's Slack group. So we have you've helped me along the way over the last couple of years. So thank you very much for that. I have finally gotten to speak to somebody who is obsessed with product pages as much as me. So I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Myself as well. There's plenty to dig into, that's for sure.
As e-commerce evolves and as COVID has pushed people in certain directions, it's interesting that people are beginning to completely mess up the product page even quicker and doing a really, really good job of it, I've noticed in the last 12 months. So before we start, tell us about Test Triggers.
Yeah, so we'll start, I guess, a little before Test Triggers, which is I've always been in e-commerce and worked at a couple of different companies, kind of working my way up to head up their e-commerce. And after a while, people kept asking me again, how do I get more from my e-commerce store? How do I get more from my e-commerce store? And I said, well, maybe I should just go out on my own and help as many brands as I can. So I started Test Triggers 6 years ago with the intent of working on e-commerce stores and helping them improve their conversion rates. So sometimes that means, looking at analytics and giving recommendations. Other times we're doing monthly A/B testing. But I just have kind of gotten obsessed with deeply understanding customers and why they buy things and helping stores to put that messaging on their site in a way that gets more sales.
Interesting. And when you work with a client then to analyze, I suppose, the performance of the store, is that a 3-month, 6-month, or a 12-month project? I'm assuming you have to be with the client for a period of time to have enough data to be able to advise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there are typically, two ways that I'll work with a client. One is we'll do what we call like CRO tactical, which is basically let's dig in for 6 to 8 weeks and take a look at your analytics, get a baseline of some user testing and customer surveys and things like that. So we can give them, hey, I know there are 1,000 different things you can do on your store, but if you knock off these 15 to 20, these are the high priority changes you can make that can improve conversions. On the other hand, if the client has enough traffic to support A/B testing, we'll say, okay, in the next 6 months, 9 months, let's knock off a couple of A/B tests every month and work on tweaking and iterating your store to make it as successful as it can be.
You're based in Michigan, and I just checked it on the map. So for our international listeners, I never realized it was so near Canada.
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up about 10 minutes from the bridge to Canada, so it was always, we grew up with it. So it was so common. But then you even speak to other people in the States, they're like, I just didn't realize you would just see Canada from, yeah. So it's just a tiny little river that separates Detroit and Windsor. So yeah, it's always been funny to talk to people about that because it is kind of surprising to a lot of people.
So is Michigan full of Canadians then because it's so close? Would it make or is that a stupid question?
No, I mean, not quite. There's plenty of work travel, like between so lots of people that live in Canada, work in the US, and kind of vice versa. But if you go to the very northern parts of Michigan, you don't get a lot of Canadians, but everyone speaks like they're Canadian. The Canadian accent has morphed into that northern part of Michigan. But yeah, I'm like an hour north of Detroit, just about. And Michigan's a neat spot, and there's not a ton of Canadians living there, but there's always, the thing was always, growing up, everyone would scoot over to Canada when they were a teenager because you could go over there at 19 and have a beer and you couldn't in the States. So that was always the little everyone. go there and have their fun. And
yeah. It's still 21 in the States, the drinking age, is it?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you for your list, right? What are the most common mistakes that you've seen on Shopify stores?
Well, to be honest, you'd mentioned kind of, I don't want to call it an e-commerce boom, right? Because e-commerce has been growing for so long, but certainly COVID has pushed a lot of people even more to online stores. And so online stores are always coming to me and saying, if I can only, I only have this much time and this much resources, where should I be spending my time? And I used to dislike that question because I would say, well, you should really be digging into everything and trying to optimize here and there. And eventually I gave in and said, wait a minute, if everyone just focuses on their product pages, you can do a lot. And so maybe we'll start with some of the not to do things that I just see a lot. Again, particularly with everything happening right now on product pages. So let's knock off a couple of those things. And I would say that a lot of stores, their biggest concern right now is supply chain, whether something's in stock, out of stock, what's the lead time. And so being transparent and honest with customers is the best way to go. What I really don't like seeing is you get to a product page or wherever you land on the site, and the first thing you're hit with is an email pop-up, and you close the email pop-up and you immediately get a pop-up for a live chat, and then you close that, and then you're just trying to find information about this product, and there's a countdown ticker that says, this product is half off, but only if you order it in the next 2.5 minutes, and all of these little, hacks and tricks to try and, coerce people into buying something is really just the wrong approach. And so it stems from two things. One, like I mentioned before, you're just trying to get as many people to convert as possible, which I certainly understand. But it also stems from the fact that people that work on their stores tend to not actually view their stores as a user all that often. So what I really recommend a lot of people do is take out your phone, turn off your Wi-Fi, open a private browser window or an incognito browser window, and shop your store on a relatively slow internet connection. That is how a lot of people are looking at your store. And if you're getting frustrated with the pop-ups and with the slide outs and with the inability to find the information, then your users are probably 10 times more bothered by that. So I really think that everyone should be using their store as closely as they can, like a customer.
Just on that, that's a really, really important point. But in some cases, you could actually blame Shopify for that, because the apps that are driving the Google Page Experience update, for example, is forcing people to really look at what is popping up on their store, which is exactly what you've mentioned. You also have loyalty programs, you have accessibility icons. People also bought triggers in the left corner. I would blame Shopify for some of that, because these apps are just so easy to install and get up and running.
Yeah, I would say that's a really great point. Every time a store owner is in the app store, right there, every single app is going to tell you that they can increase your sales, right? But when you start to build them like a house of cards on top of each other, and from the back end of Shopify, it all looks great, but the actual store experience starts to suffer. And again, I would say that if you are running a Shopify store and you've never done user tests with a tool like usertesting.com, or there's another one called Playbook UX, I would highly, highly recommend that, because you will be astonished at what someone thinks of your store and what they say and their experience, and maybe their difficulty finding a certain product. You'll be shouting at the screen like, no, you just have to click on that nav button and it's under this thing and it's in that flyout menu.
So Josh, how does that tool work then? Just give us a rundown on how does it require a code install?
No. So user testing is really simple. You basically, you'll sign up with, again, like a tool like usertesting.com or playbook.ux, I think is the other one that I've used a lot. You will pick an audience. So you'll say, I'd like people in this age group, people that have this level of sophistication with the internet. And the tool will go out and find you 6 to 8 participants. I don't recommend really much more than that. The diminishing returns start to hit after you've watched 6 or 7 of them. Do them on mobile. And then you will, most of them have templates for the questions that you would ask this person, but basically a user tester is going to use your site and they're going to be speaking out loud to a recorded video that you will then get to watch. So you'll see how they interact with your site. And then you can ask them a couple of questions about, on a scale of 1 to 5, how trustworthy does this site feel? And you can also do that for your competitors' sites, which is provides a lot of insights. But it's quite easy. There's no code install needed. And you can get a ton of insights out of that. Now, I am saying this, and I have said this for years and years and years, and almost nobody ever actually takes me up on this offer and does user testing. So I understand that, I'm doing air quotes here. Research always sounds boring and not as fun as downloading and installing a new Shopify app. But I promise you, if you set up a batch of user tests, you get 5 to 6 videos. You sit down in the evening with a glass of wine or a bourbon or whatever your drink of choice is, and you watch them. You will learn more than you would if you jumped in and spent 2 hours in Google Analytics. I promise you that.
I believe you 100%. And I think that one of our tools of choice is Hotjar. But the problem, of course, with Hotjar is you need the time to review the actual videos. But the tool that you've just mentioned seems to be maybe Hotjar on steroids. Of course.
Yeah.
Now
for sure.
With your service, do your team sit down and watch the videos on behalf of the customer? Is that the way you work for large clients?
Yeah, so we will set up the user tests. We will watch them, and we will say, okay, for each video, here were the top 3 to 4 bullet point lists. But then I will also talk to the CEO or the director of e-commerce and say, I understand that you don't want to spend an hour and a half watching these videos. I completely understand that, but there will be insights that they get that I can't even get because they're so close to the product that they will get different insights. So I try really hard to get people to watch them. But that being said, our team, evaluates them, pulls all the top insights out, and grabs those. And same to be said for Hotjar. Your point is really a good one on Hotjar, which is Hotjar is a fantastic tool. I've been using it for forever. But again, watching recordings, you may have to watch 20 or 25 before you start getting a couple with some insights. So it can be, it can take a little while. Also, heat maps are good, but usually unless something is wrong, it's a little tough to see insights from a heat map. We love using the visitor polls. So one of the visitor polls being, of course, I'm now going to talk about something else that pops up when you're viewing the site. But
so Josh, on that though, I've heard some really, really good feedback, and I've heard you talk about visitor polls. So can you just explain to the users basically what it is? And also, are you talking about visitor polls on the front end of the site, or visitor polls after they've gone through a transaction or they're just about to abandon the page? I suppose my next question embedded in what you're going to talk about is, at what point should you ask the user for their opinion?
For sure. Yeah. So we gather customer feedback in a couple of different ways. So visitor polls is a large tool that we use, which we will always do a 3-question set. So we'll run each one for about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the amount of traffic. The first one we'll do is, it's pretty simple. On whatever page the user lands on, after about 10 to 15 seconds, we'll slide up a little poll that says, what brought you here today? Nearly every time we run a visitor poll, we use an open-ended question. So not a multiple choice or not like an NPS score 1 to 10. We just ask a question and let people type into the box whatever they feel. We do that because you don't know what someone's going to say that might trigger like, oh, wow, I really didn't realize people were speaking like that about our product. And so we'll run that one on the homepage. We'll run another one on category and product pages that will say, what trouble did you have finding the product you were looking for? Or we might say, what's missing from this page that would help you make a buying decision, something like that. And then the last one we will do, which is by far the most important that we get the best insights from, is after someone makes a successful purchase on the thank you page, we will ask, what nearly stopped you from making your purchase today? And I know a lot of people will run this poll to people that are about to abandon and say, why didn't you make a purchase today? But we've just found that when you ask people that don't buy, they will 85 to 90% of them will say price. And they don't actually mean that it's too expensive. What they mean is that it's not valuable enough for them to part with their cash. So when you ask people that have actually purchased, qualified buyers, but you ask them, what's that one hesitation that you had that nearly stopped you from purchasing? They will give you a gold mine of answers. So we'll run those until we get 75 to 100 responses. And then we'll go through all of those, and we'll specifically look for someone that says words like never, always, love, hate, afraid,
And
things like that.
So Josh, just on that then, are you in that survey? Okay, I suppose visitor survey. It's not customer survey because some of them obviously aren't purchasing. Are you taking an email address and giving them a reward? Are you following up with them, or is there any follow up?
No, with those, there's generally no follow up. We don't, it takes about 6 to 8 seconds. We'll send a little thank you message just on the page. But we found that unless we're doing like a visitor, like a customer survey through email, that's maybe 15 to 20 questions long. With those, I'll say, we'll put you in a raffle for a $50 Amazon card or something like that. But when it comes to Hotjar, it's just a pretty simple survey with no kind of perks or email needed.
Okay. That's probably the best feedback you could ever get. Is that right? From any visitor?
I like to, like I mentioned in the beginning, store owners are always saying, I don't have time to do all of this. What is the one or two things that I could do? One is, I would say, whether it's user testing or asking this specific question at the end of a purchase, those would be the two biggest ones. If you don't have Hotjar installed, you can still do this. If you grab the email addresses of the last 200 to 300 people to purchase your product, and you email them back and say, "Hey, thanks for making your purchase. We asked this one question to help make our products better. What's the one hesitation you had before making your purchase?" You can just do that. You can set that up in Klaviyo or whatever else. But trying to understand from the people that did end up purchasing, they had fears, hesitations, doubts about your product. Having a list of those and saying, so for our clients, we'll do this research, and then we'll give them back what we call Cornerstone Fuds. So FUD just stands for fears, uncertainty, and doubts. So we'll boil it down and say, okay, for your product, the top 3 of these hesitations were, X, Y, and Z. This should now be ingrained in your whole company's ethos.
Yeah.
People on your store are worried about these things, whether a product will fit, or they're afraid it's going to break after this amount of time, or they didn't think it would be as good as this other product. Customer service should know these things. Your sales team should know these things.
So I'm assuming then that you, as the advisor, advises the client to use that information to influence the product, but also, more importantly, to influence the content on the very page that you're discussing, which is the products, the Shopify, the PDP, we call it the product display page.
Absolutely. So it's very important that we take that information and then say, okay, let's go back to the product page. Somewhere in the buy box, are you addressing these concerns by saying, our products have a 1-year warranty if anything breaks. We have a return policy, a no questions asked return policy. We, again, let's say it's so it's food or supplements or something like that. People are always going to ask, do you have harmful ingredients? That's going to be a top concern. So you'll say, free from this chemical and that chemical. So it's different for every store, obviously, but you've got to then bring those insights back to the product page and walk it through like that. So when we go through a PDP or a product page, we use what's called a script formula. So script just stands for story, clarity, reviews, images, parts and pieces, and terms. And the sort of quick walkthrough, and we can sort of dig into any of these specifics, throughout the rest of this conversation. But story is basically, does your product page tell a captivating story about how your product improves someone's situation? So what we mean by that is the old adage, people don't buy products, they buy better versions of themselves, or they buy outcomes. And that is, throughout your whole product page should be weaved this understanding of, somebody isn't necessarily buying, a protein bar because they want to have a giant box of protein bars. They want to be full, and they want to know that they didn't eat something terrible like a cheeseburger. So
agreed.
That is what they're actually looking for, right?
That's a good example.
They don't wake up and they're like, I've got to have protein bars.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to feel bad about what I eat, and I want to have energy for the rest of the day. Clarity is, have you combed through your whole page and taken all of the cliche and overused terms like satisfaction guaranteed, and kind of gotten rid of that and made everything clear? There's always a trend to try and make your copy as clever as possible. Clever is really, really hard to do well. And it often comes off as egotistical or just unclear. The trick I always use for this is if you were sitting down with a friend, like at a coffee shop, and you were explaining to them how your product works, that's how you should write your product page. Just like you're explaining it to a friend over a text message, even, right? It's how people speak to each other. So that's always how we talk about clarity. Reviews is pretty obvious. We should all have reviews, right? But not everyone has 100 reviews on every product page. So when you start to get a few, pull them out of your Yotpo and just feature them on the page. Sometimes we even, on the product images, the lower third of the product image will be an overlay with a featured review. Nobody tells your story better than other people that have used the product. It's more trustworthy. It's not going to be in weird cliche language. So reviews are huge.
And Josh, just on that, I mean, the reviews apps that are out there right now, they are giving every store owner the opportunity to plant those stars and the reviews all over the page. The trend in the last 12 months has been this kind of reviews carousel that you can present as a section on the homepage of your Shopify store. So like one thing I can't understand with store owners that have reviews and have a lot of them. Well, one thing they could do is exactly what you said, is overlay the actual review on the product photos, but also bring it through the site. And a lot of people don't even create the full page of customer reviews. They don't even bring the stars in under the title or the price on the product. So a lot of people, I think, already have the tools to bring in reviews and they're just not using it.
Yeah, I've often found a repeatable situation is when a store is very new, they say, we have to have reviews. We don't have any reviews. And they become obsessed with getting reviews, which is great. Then they get reviews and they're like, yeah, just stick them like way, way, way down on the product page and have a tiny little star icon near the name. Like that'll be enough. But again, I really encourage store owners to grab their best reviews. And by best reviews, I don't necessarily just mean the 5-star ones. Sort of the perfect review is always something where someone says like, I was afraid that this product wouldn't work because of X, but it turned out to be the perfect, solution that I needed because it does X, Y, and Z. Well, like that's kind of the formula because people love to hear, oh, I'm not the only one that was worried that this protein bar would taste chalky or that it wouldn't leave me full, or whatever else. So those types of reviews are great. And also there are store reviews. So reviews where someone says, let's just keep going with the protein bar analogy here.
Yeah.
I bought a 24 pack of the protein bars. They sent me the wrong flavor, but Jim, the CEO, emailed me back himself and sent me the other box for free or whatever, right? Those store reviews where someone has a small little issue, it was solved without problem. Everyone's happy. Featuring those throughout your entire site, not just on a product page, is going to be incredibly valuable. You are competing against, a lot of other brands. And so the more you can, here's a cliche phrase, but like make your site kind of come to life. What I mean by that is copy and text from users, conversations, those types of things make it onto your page. It just makes it seem like there are real people behind this site actually operating this. And that's why, I'm not buying from Amazon or whatever else.
Rewind.io is the leading backup solution for your Shopify store. Did you know that there's no way of recovering lost data? If your store is gaining traction, app developers or multiple staff may enter your store, and there's absolutely no way of fixing human error. Rewind.io allows you to rewind your store back to its original state, so you can reduce your business risk immediately with the Rewind app. It's so easy and is the cheapest and best insurance policy you'll ever need for your Shopify store. Get your first month for free by simply replying to your first email from Rewind and mention this podcast. Now, regular listeners will know I love Klaviyo. It's the single biggest revenue generator I've ever seen across hundreds and hundreds of Shopify stores I've been in. Klaviyo's data-driven marketing automation platform is sophisticated enough to power those legendary campaigns from the big brands you admire, but they make it simple, they make it easy, and they make it fast. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's klaviyo.com/milkbottle. So Josh, just to go back, so it's a good idea to overlay recent reviews or even have a full review as an image in your store. Bring the reviews up from the bottom. And I've also heard you talk in the past about the mistake that people make when they hide reviews inside a tab. Can you just give the listeners detail on that?
Yeah, it's another. It sort of goes back to what we were talking about before, where a lot of it starts because you don't have a lot of reviews. So you don't want to say, we have one review and it's 3 stars. You hide it in a tab called reviews. But then as you start to get more and more reviews, it just makes no sense to hide it inside of a tab. Again, we want to be bringing this stuff to the forefront. And if you absolutely have to use some sort of tabbed approach, I always recommend an accordion model where the accordion, each set of the accordion, whether it's description, specifications, and reviews, they're all open like a quarter of the way. So you can still see a little bit of the content inside of the accordion, and then you can kind of hit a read more button to open it all the way up. That tends to give somebody an idea of, okay, it's not exactly hidden. A little tough to explain on a podcast, but there are examples out there of that method that just kind of, from what we've tested, seems to be the best way. If you must sort of hide content a little bit, but that's the best way to approach that.
So give the user a little kind of tease of the first part of the first paragraph. And
exactly, so that they can see that.
Yeah, and if
specifications, the specifications tab has a sizing table inside of it. Okay, neat. That's what I need for this T-shirt. I want to see a sizing table and whatever else.
That's an important takeaway. Okay, let's talk about the things in stores that really, really annoy you. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share a quick list of the possible pop-ups when they're all combined make a homepage a disaster. So Klaviyo pop-up, right? It's necessary evil, $5 off your next order. There's no doubt about it. It does work and people do subscribe. But then people, the minute you close that out, people have these bingo carousels where, win a prize, this kind of thing. And it takes up about 25% of the homepage. Then, because you have X'd out of the first Klaviyo pop-up, store owners decide to give you a second pop-up, which you may actually decide to close out again. Then you have some apps are putting reviews on the left-hand side of the page. People also bought on the left-hand side of the page. And then you have loyalty icons on the right corner, accessibility icons on the left. So that's 8 in total of possible apps that customers can add to their store, which really, really annoy the user. Can you give us your top 5 based on all of the stores that you've tested and all of the merchants that you've worked with?
The things that drive me crazy?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say that the one that probably annoys me the most is this combination of fake urgency and fake stock messaging. So when I land on a product page and it says, you have to order this in the next 7 minutes and 13 seconds, or else the price is going to double, which it's not, because that's almost always a lie. The other one is when I'm buying a pair of socks and it tells you that to hurry up, there are only 2 pairs of these socks left, which again, and for the kind of technical people out there, you can usually right click on that and inspect the element. And it's just a random JavaScript generator that generates a number between 1 and 4, to lie to you about the stock messaging for that. It's disingenuous.
It is,
and
100%
it's
right.
just, it's cheap looking, and it takes away from what really sells on a consistent basis. And I would say that sometimes that might convince a few more people to purchase, but it will not create lifelong customers, right? And so part of that, I think, the unfortunate thing about a lot of that is, I think a good portion of e-commerce stores, when it really gets boiled down, they are selling a commodity. They may not have a real brand story. They might not have products that are all that great. They might be drop shipping. And so you might need to use those kind of tactics to try and squeeze every little store sale that you can out. But I would encourage you to just feed back to your product, develop your brand story, because otherwise, again, you're just kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're trying to get that sale, but you're not going to get the lifetime customer. So those annoy me the most because they're just disingenuous. And that stuff just drives me nuts. Another thing is when I see just overused run-of-the-mill copy, where it's like, it's again, we'll find you're selling socks, let's say, and it's the most comfortable socks you'll ever wear. Well, wouldn't everyone say that? I mean, as opposed to, let's say you like comb through all of your customer reviews and someone said, these socks are so comfortable, I fell asleep in them. And I woke up and they were still comfortable, right? Because no one wants to sleep in their socks. That's uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But if they were so comfortable, you would sleep in them. That's something that's like a little bit different. And and has the ability to actually, plant in someone's mind. But boring run-of-the-mill copy, our socks are satisfaction guaranteed.
But Josh,
we use only the best materials. It's just, droning and boring.
Josh, what you've really said to summarize is, you should be honest, because the false urgency is dishonest, and it's actually quite unethical, if you want to build, as you say, a long-term sustainable business. My big pet hate is chat icons that are half covered by a loyalty icon. And then when you do go to chat, the first thing they do is ask you for your email address, and there's nobody at the other end. Like, why? Yes. Why have that? Like, straight away, it's a bad customer experience, especially if you're on a store which has a high, a $200, $300, $500, $1,000 average order value, where the items really, really do warrant somebody at the other end, helping the customer. I have to say, that's my pet hate.
Kind of going back to the script framework, which is sort of our guidelines and workflow for optimizing a product page. We've talked about S for story, C for clarity, R for reviews. The next one would be images. So I think the image gallery might be the most under-optimized section of a product page, particularly if you have a sort of a complicated product or something that needs a little bit of explanation, and you expect someone to read through your description, but they probably won't. So I always recommend it in a image gallery. Let's use another example here. You're selling really nice mountain bikes. So one would be, you have let's say it's a mountain bike and it's collapsible. It folds down really nicely, or it compacts really nicely. Well, you might say that in your description, but it would be much better if you just showed in the image gallery, show it being used on a mountain trail, show it also being folded up nicely and put into a small car. Also, let's show a picture of the mountain bike and have annotated images. So like little arrows that point to the seat and say 8-way adjustable seat, or, talk about all the little benefits and point to them. That's a way to really use that image gallery the best you can. Why not take a couple of your top Instagram posts from users and put those in there as well? We talked about maybe overlaying user reviews on top of a bottom third. There are a million different things you can do with your product images. People are going to click and go through those images if they're interested. Let's make the most of that section. Again, like I said, I really think this is one of the top under optimized areas of the product page.
But Josh, is there a reason for that? Is it because people invest sometimes in expensive photography and they don't want to destroy the images? Would that be a reason, maybe in the fashion sector, the beauty sector? Or are you seeing that kind of lack of appetite to layer messages over the images? Are you seeing that across all sectors?
So I see it pretty much everywhere. Sometimes really overly technical companies will do it because they have no other choice. But what I tend to find when I talk to brands about this is they say, "Oh, no, we don't need to say that because that's in the product description." Well, okay, right, but saying something once doesn't mean you've said it enough for someone to see it. Yeah. So even on, and I understand people have a brand concern; they want all their pictures to look, everything has to be beautiful and nothing to disrupt it. But even in fashion, why not point to the waistband and say, 25% stretch material here for increased comfort. This shirt is pre-shrunk, or how about saying the model that's wearing this t-shirt is 5'10", 180 pounds, right? Yeah. So now people have this frame of reference. You're really just like, again, making the site come to life and giving all these little nuanced details that help people with all the little questions. And if you talk to your customer service team or hopefully someone's running that chat bot, they can say, here are all the questions people have, and then just bake that stuff right back into the page. And the next part on this script format is parts and pieces, which still kind of comes off of the back of that, which is people want to know what exactly comes with this product. Like when I open the box, what exactly is going to be in that box? For the mountain bike example, is every part going to be there that I need? If there are tools that I need to put it together, what's that going to be? So let someone know exactly what they're going to get. And then the last one is called terms. So answer all the what if questions. What happens if I get it and it's broken? What happens if I get it and it breaks in 2 months? How long is it going to take to get it? If you're anyone that's been shopping for a bike recently knows that lead times are very, very long for any sort of outdoor equipment. Be honest with people. Hey, we've seen a lot of interest in bikes. It might take 6 to 8 weeks to deliver your bike, but the only way to get it is to get in line. You've got to place the order and just be honest about those things.
Yeah, we had an issue recently. Obviously, you're aware that the UK left the EU, so there was tax implications for orders from any EU country. So a lot of Irish businesses would have a pretty decent market in the UK, and when you ship from Ireland to the UK now, there's a customs duty which is paid by the user on the other end. And what we did was we planted some notifications in the actual product page right under the price between the add to cart button, and we addressed them straight on just to say that the item is shipped from an Irish warehouse. So that helped Irish customers understand that they were going to get it without any inbound duty. And then for international users, they knew that if they bought it from the UK, that they may be subject to tax. So it's interesting the direction that you've pointed there. You can also save on your customer service, like 5 or 6 bullet points in your product page, which I've seen you design yourself, can save a massive amount of questions being asked through these famous chatbots, but also calls into your customer care if your business is significant.
Absolutely. I guess you sort of settled on it a couple minutes ago when you said, well, Josh, isn't this really just about being honest?
Yeah.
and it is. And it's being honest, but it's also, find your voice, find your way to say these things that, like I mentioned, the same way that you would talk to your friend about these things. And you would tell your friend like, hey, supply chain's like really tough right now. It's hard to get these parts, but it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. And the other thing too, is if you are selling so many products that you're running into these issues, it's not the worst thing in the world to tell people, yeah, these products are in high demand. It's a supply and demand situation, right? Yeah. So you're letting people know, Josh, it's not like no one's buying these.
Josh, your point is so valid. The other thing is there's a perception by a lot of Shopify store owners that everybody wants the product tomorrow or within 3 days. I don't think that's the case. Amazon has created this kind of artificial uncertainty for people. And they have people convinced, that if you've 2 products on Amazon and one says you can get it in 3 days and the other one says it could be a week, that you're automatically going to buy the one with the shorter distance to arrival. I don't agree with that. I think if a person is going to put their card into your Shopify store, I really wonder if anybody's going to make an online purchasing decision based on hours of a saving on time. Or is that completely wrong? What's your view on that?
So that really depends on whether or not the customer feels like they're buying something unique, and that might be true on the sock purchase, right? I just want socks. They're pretty comfortable. These ones get to me the fastest. I pick those. But if it comes to the mountain bike example, that's a whole different story, because somebody might actually be excited that I got in line for one of these bikes. Yeah. They're custom made. I got to input my size, my riding style to get this custom bike. And then it would be on the company to say, hey, we send them an email like once a month that says, hey, your bike has just gotten to this part of its build, now you're following along. And that becomes more story and more excitement that when that person gets that bike, now they're going to do like an unboxing. They're going to be, It's just, we're just building all these little moments.
Yeah.
But that comes back to understanding it's totally fine if you sell socks. That's fine. But you might be in that commodity race versus if you have a product that's a more, that's more unique and has, that strong value tie to the customer. You can kind of build that into the story.
So really, I was slightly wrong. It depends on the product, and it probably depends on the price point as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, 100%. Look, Josh, it's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you. I would be very interested in talking to you again, maybe in about 9 months, 12 months, to look at the trends again, to see where the design of product pages is going. But in the meantime, we will put the links back to testtriggers.com and your services in the show notes. And look, thank you again. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So I have one small thing I'd like to add. I forgot. Anytime I'm interviewed,
you go for it.
If anyone would like, I'll do a free video review of your product page for the first 5 people. If they donate at afsp.org, we'll put the link in there.
Yeah.
It's a suicide prevention organization. If you donate and forward the receipt to me, Josh at Test Triggers, again, Keith will put this all in the show notes.
Yeah.
The first 5 people that do that, I'll do a free video product page review for you. And thanks for your donation to an important organization. So
absolutely. Look, that's nice. That organization is obviously close to your heart, and we'll make sure to put those links in the show notes. Josh, thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. All of our episodes are available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. A special note of appreciation goes to our sponsors, Rewind.io, the leading backup solution for Shopify store owners. Get your first month of Rewind for free by simply responding to any welcome email once you sign up for your free trial on Rewind.io. And of course, to the email platform Klaviyo, which helps Shopify brands easily create personalized, multi-channel marketing campaigns using your most powerful asset, your customer data. To get started with a free trial of Klaviyo, visit klaviyo.com/milkbottle. That's KLAVIYO.com/milkbottle. If you're a Shopify user with an exciting story to tell, reach out to the team on podcast@milkbottlelabs.com. Until the next time, take care.